So what is an ultra? An ultra or ultra marathon is basically a run that's anything over a marathon distance, which is 26.2 miles or 42 kilometers. You know, some people go kind of 50 kilometers, 100 kilometers, 100 miles. You know, it goes up to like, I think there's some races that are about 230 miles. Yeah, it's a world that I didn't know existed, but there's a serious group of people that kind of take on those kind of challenges.
Well, Will's always been into sport. He's got a very competitive attitude. If he plays something, he wants to win. If he attempts something, he wants to complete it, and that's the way he's been. He's been encouraged to be just go for whatever he wants to go for, and we try to support him in what he wants to do. We don't want to bind him.
Dollar Dean is not Will growing up. Dollar growing up he's something else. Always after this. Always. Hence the name Dollar Dean. So I'd have been 15 and he was 12, and he looked 15 and I looked 12. That's as simple as that. Like it was mad, and he's just there with a bag full of like Coke cans, just trying to sell them to anyone, trying to get as much money as he can, just like non-stop, like scootering, making money at 12 years old. It's so funny.
So I'm Will, I'm 21, and yeah, I've got into running weirdly far. So I grew up, you know, maybe like a normal kid, like sort of playing football and bits and bobs, but literally stopped playing football the moment it went to full-size pitches because of the idea of having to run around a big pitch I didn't like. Then got into kind of skating and stuff. I think maybe three years ago, did like a charity boxing event. During that training, I did running as training for that and quite enjoyed it because it didn't feel as hard as boxing training. And then signed up to do a sort of local 10K run. I remember sort of showing up there and yeah, I had like a big jacket on, a beanie on, and there's all these people in these tight clothes with bright colours, and I just felt like a bit of an outsider.
I don't think he was running at all before. He used to be a big boy and then lost the weight and then somehow got into the scheme of running and hasn't stopped since.
The reason he started running, that's a hard one really, because I think it was something he sort of fell into, in as much as his father's always run, I used to run. I don't know if it's that, or it was around the time, I want to say my diagnosis, but I don't want people to know. Around that time, he decided he wanted to start and raise money for the charity.
And my mum, well, my hero really, she's there, and she's like the reason I do it all.
I went back to my office and I locked the door and I just swung around on my chair. You've been in my office, there's not much room, but you can just about do that. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I'd heard. And I was thinking, did I imagine that? Did that really just happen? Is that how you find out you've got a terminal illness and you're going to go gaga? That's how someone tells you.
I suppose in a nutshell, to people who won't know, or basically what is Alzheimer's?
I'd say it's like a time bomb waiting to go off, but it's not an instant time bomb. So when they first diagnose you and they say you've got 2 years, you know, do your will, your power of attorney, and that's it. What they should be saying is, go out and enjoy yourself. Do everything that you want, everything that you can think of that you want to do. Go and make lots of memories, you know, enjoy life. That was 5 years ago, so yeah, it kicked ass.
And do you know why I specifically chose to do the stuff for the charity I did?
I assume because you thought it was something to do with me and you were helping to perhaps find a cure.
Yeah.
Is that right? Or?
Yeah, so Alzheimer's, well, so it was when I was doing the first few runs that I was like, oh, there's this world of charity running. And I thought, oh, maybe I could aim it towards something to do with Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And then I did loads of research on what each charity does. And there's so many different aspects of the disease or the challenge, whether it's care, whether it's, you know, kind of health but then I kind of stumbled upon research because I remember early on you were kind of like, oh, there's this new medication, they're not getting me on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's this idea of research is the only way, I believe, that solutions or future kind of things to help will be discovered. And Alzheimer's Research UK, they purely focus on that. They don't focus on anything else. So that was the reason I chose them.
Yeah.
And they kind of broke down where each pound went, and it made me just go, oh, well, anything I can do to help that will inadvertently help some form of solution. But it is, I suppose, clear as day to everyone else that it's only because of you. How can I help the next mother, the next father, the next child? You know,
that
kind
has
of
to go through it.
Exactly.
I'm so glad I kept this room. Oh, I love you.
This thing came across, I think, through the charity where it was like, oh, 100-kilometer run, kind of, or walk or jog or whatever, like a challenge. It was called Jurassic Coast Challenge. And I thought, oh, okay, so I sort of broke down the math of 100-kilometer, 24 hours. In theory, you could kind of crawl or, like, you know, really slowly jog and get that done. So I thought, oh, you know what, that could be a good kind of training and experience. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll sign up.
Just by looking at the actual distance, it's quite a task, and also the terrain. It's quite a difficult terrain with the cliffs and the pebbles on the beaches, and it is an endurance mentally and physically.
I didn't own any, like, well, I'd never really been trail running. I just thought it was like running on kind of a track, like a sort of dirt track. And then sort of found out, did some quick YouTube searches, and it's like, oh, you know, you need a pack to have some food, and you need shoes with good grip, and, you know, there's these kind of crazy looking water holders, and I was like, it's pretty mad looking, but, you know, they sort of say you need it. And, you know, at the time I didn't really have much kind of disposable income, so I got some shoes, like, as cheap as I could, that would sort of do the job, a little pack with some bottles. I sort of spoke to a few friends about it, and they immediately gave me the, oh, I reckon, you know, you'll give up at this point, I don't think you've got it. And they knew that was very much something that would motivate me to grit my teeth and crack on. So we kind of had little wagers going, and so I got the train down, hadn't booked any accommodation. The train was actually pretty long, it was probably like five odd hours, so arrived there maybe at about 9 or 10 at night. Went to a hotel, like a travel lodge. I was like, oh, have you got a room? And there was some other event going on, so all the hotels were fully booked out. I think it was like a boating event. And then the weather started to turn, so it started raining. I thought, okay, I can just hang out at a hotel bar and maybe buy a drink, like one drink, and just kind of linger and see if I can, you know, sort of go somewhere and sleep. But the guy sort of clocked onto it, so I had a beer, and the guy was like, oh, you're gonna have to go. So I sat in a bus stop with a shelter, and I was like, right, where can I go? I thought, I'm not gonna stay here.
He had no one with him. He was there by himself, he knew no one. He couldn't rely on anyone.
So then I had an idea of like, oh, like A&E, they're open all the time, there's a waiting room. I've got many a memory of waiting for hours on end, but I couldn't find the entrance, so I sat on the bus stop outside probably for about half an hour, and then I saw someone walk through and the doors just opened, and I was like, I've been waiting here for half an hour and it is open. And I literally just remember sitting in the corner with my phone on charge and like just kind of dozing off like this, like where my head's just down, and then you kind of keep waking up because you want to check everything's still there. The race started at about 8 or 9, and then at 7 I got woken up by a nurse coming over, and she was like, oh, like, excuse me sir, you've been here a long time, are you okay, do you need to be seen? And I was like, look, I'm not gonna pretend like there's something wrong with me, like I'm here, this is what's happened, I'm down in the area for a race. And she was like, oh, bless you, and she was kind enough to go and get me a coffee and a sandwich. So I had that, and I was like, right, okay, gonna have to now get to the start line.
He had no money to spend on anything, so he was spending his last pennies on getting his luggage from the beginning to end, so he had to get to the end. That was his like mental push.
One of my friends said, like, you know how you feel like you should go off easy? He said, go off even easier. That was like the only knowledge I had about how to run these things. It was going okay, like sort of was doing pretty well and felt okay. From about the 40 odd K to about the 55 maybe, that's where there's this part of this event that I didn't know existed, which is called like elevation. Normally when you sign up to these races, you get a map or a graph of how much climbing there is, so like how much you have to go up. Yeah, I'd never seen anything like it.
I've never seen a hill like it. I still can't think the same thing. Here we go.
I remember coming up along the promenade to that 50 mark, I was feeling beaten up. I felt like I'd been in a fight with the hills, and they definitely won. Like my hips were aching, my feet were definitely swollen. It was purely a bit of a crawl to that aid station. And to make it a bit worse, when I got to the aid station, because you could do a half challenge, there were people there going, well done, like with champagne bottles. And I was like, no, I'm only halfway. The thing that kept me going and made it not an option to give up was the bets and the kind of antagonising with my friends. I'd never live it down if I bottled it halfway. Like, you ain't gonna catch me doing that. It was starting to get dark, and one of the rules of the event is you have to group up with people, and they have like a mandatory kit list, which is, you know, for me, as someone that was going there on a budget and all this stuff, I barely had enough stuff, so you had to have a headlamp that worked. Thankfully, the one that I'd picked up from a cupboard at home, the batteries worked, so they let me go off in this group of people. We went off into the night. I think the next checkpoint wasn't too far, so it was a nice, like, cool, we'll just push for a little bit, get to the next one. It started getting really hard, really fast. Like, most of the climbing was done, but, you know, because of my lack of sleep, really, the night before, I just started being really weary, my body was aching. And I remember we basically kind of went along the cliffs or the kind of coastal path, and this head torch that I had was pretty dim. Like, thinking back now, it might be as good as the front of your phone if you turned it around. So you could really only see like the rain coming down on you and maybe just by your toes. And if you look to the left, you realise you're in the middle of nowhere, and it's like this cliff edge, so you're kind of like, wow, this is pretty exposed. Yeah, and then I was just trying to kind of keep myself awake. So I think I had a couple of caffeinated gels that I'd saved. So I was like, right, so we're sipping on them just to try and give me some kind of boost to stay alert. And then we had these like buff kind of neck warmer things. And so I'd put that over my mouth and nose to make sure that when I breathed, because I'd been quite heavy, like it would kind of blow onto my face and kind of keep me awake. And like I said, it was a real plod by that point. It was complete, just get to the next checkpoint, get to the next checkpoint. So we got to, I think, maybe it might have been about 75 or it was around there. Got there and I'm like, man, this is kicking my butt, like this is tough. But then they sort of said, oh, it's only to 82, the next one. So that kind of, you know, it sort of seemed achievable. And then, you know, if you get there, then you're not all that far from the end. I didn't bring any other layers, so the sweat, and I'd got cold, started shivering, you know, like my sort of cramping and hip was just ruined, and there was a lot of turnstiles. So the turnstiles almost became the mountain. Like you'd see it and you'd be like, oh no, not again. Like this kind of mammoth thing to have to like lumber your broken body over. I remember vividly, probably about 79K or 78K, it was a sign and it said that, and I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I don't want to be doing this. This is too much. I feel like I'm going to fall asleep. I feel like I might hurt myself. I'm in the middle of nowhere. There's no help in sight. You know, people are kind of split, and all you see in the distance is these headlamps, but going up, so you're like, there's more climbing. Like the kind of, yeah, the world seems to be closing in. At that point, I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be doing it anymore. But the reality was, there's no option to you know, time it out. You can't just go, oh, I'm going to stop here, because if I stop, I'm going to be cold and I'll probably get even worse or be in a more precarious position. So it's the first time in my life I've wanted to stop something, and there's been no, you know, safe choice to do so.
Mentally, he was ready, but physically, he hadn't done anywhere near the training he's done for this attempt.
He wasn't prepared at all. He just came down thinking that he could do it, it'd be hard, but he thought he'd be able to do it. But when you are, I think he got to about the 18-hour stage when his body was just packing up on him. He couldn't walk any further. That he realised that he'd have to look at it seriously with diet and with the physical side of it.
Well, more importantly, I remember calling my mum and being like, possibly when I made the decision to stop. Yeah, and I think she was very kind about it, but I'm like, the most of all, I was like, I'm sorry I've let you down, I'm sorry I failed, like, because this is, you know, there's reasons why I do these things, and to fall short to me is it's tough. I wasn't ready for this. This was not, I did not know what this was. You know, yeah, I'm gonna get ridiculed by my boys, but at least I didn't drop out of 50K. I remember taking my shirt off to change a shirt because I collected my bag. I took a photo actually of the shirt almost to let people know that, you know, I've thrown in the towel, here's the number, here's where I got to, you know, thanks for the support, you know, because I felt like I let people down. Managed to somehow get a lift to the station. I remember I had to make a few changes on the train, and I remember stepping on and off the train was a chore. My body, my hips were in pain. And then my friend Tim, one of my closest friends, Tim, he actually called me. He arranged, he was like, hey, let's go grab a beer, let's talk about how it was.
Yeah, so we went for a beer at the boathouse about, I don't know, 100 yards from your front door, which was a struggle for him to get to, bless him.
Then met up with him and he was waiting outside. I think he cycled there, and he saw me from a mile away hobbling up the street, and he's like, oh my God, what's happened?
I was really, really interested in seeing how he was coping with the aftermath of having done essentially a double marathon, cross country, in the dark, nearly falling off coastal paths and things like that. And sure enough, it had definitely taken its toll.
Since that, and then kind of talking to my friends and them being a bit like, oh, no, you haven't got it. But when we expressed what it actually was, it was kind of like, okay. But then straight away, the first thought is, I need to redeem that. Like, it's unfinished business. It's a kind of, I now know what it is, so let's rectify this, straighten it out and get it done. Immediately it was like, right, when's the next one? So it'd be next year, which would be, I think 2020, this was 2019. The weird part about that whole run was that was in preparation for the Berlin Marathon. That was a training run that almost would be enough to make someone never want to run again. So got back on point, let my body heal, and then started prepping for Berlin properly.
Alright guys, we're here with Dean. He's about to go on a nice 3-hour run for no reason whatsoever, because he's a psychopath.
Yeah, in about 4 weeks I'm running the Berlin Marathon in aid of Alzheimer's Research UK. So today's another long run day. I decided to spice it up a little bit by running for 3 hours around the same pitch, around the skate park, following the tree lines.
Berlin, I can still picture. I saw him at the first checkpoint, just by chance. Jake got me in the right spot, and I was so happy, and he high-fived me. I saw him a few times, but at the finish, he was running towards me, and I thought he won't stop because it's time, and he stopped, and we got eye contact, and Jake filmed it. And then when he came over afterwards, he just gave us the biggest hug in the world, still holding his lager that they get. And it was just so special, because he'd done it. It was his first marathon and he'd done it. And then he gave me the medal.
And that was the first sense of like achievement, that kind of euphoric thing. My mum was at the finish line, my best friend was at the finish line. It was a pretty cool trip. We didn't know or anticipate what 2020 would look like, as it came to sort of March, April, COVID hit.
The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades. To stay at home, protect our NHS and save lives.
This is not it.
2 cases now in England. Hundreds dead, thousands infected across multiple continents.
English schools will still be closed to most, and the lockdown will go on.
We hope it will therefore be safe to begin the reopening of schools.
We will meet again.
And changed everything. Me and my business, it was like we can't trade as a physical store. all the running events were cancelled, everyone was locked down. You know, I literally pretty much moved in with my girlfriend and her family. The world stopped, the world went inside, and yeah, it's still only now, we're still kind of in that world, and it's still unfolding. Within that, it was okay. It's quite hard to work towards those goals, and do they really matter? Are they really important? Like when, you know, people are losing lives and people are losing businesses, people are losing, you know, kind of hope, really. Like my mum's classed as a high-risk person, so I couldn't go and see my family. And at the time, there was a genuine fear of, imagine going back and being responsible for passing it, or like it was a very fearful thing. Like it was, you know, it was made out to us of like, yeah, it was almost like carrying a gun, but one you couldn't see. Like it was crazy. You saw a lot of magic within that though. Like communities came together, whether it was the NHS clap, like people were doing that, or whether it was, you know, kind acts of people helping the elderly and like all that sort of stuff.
Lovely story coming up. A 99-year-old war veteran has decided to walk 100 lengths of his back garden. He wants to raise money for the NHS.
Here he comes, Captain Tom.
It was a moment the country came together to say thank you to those who take care of us.
Very kind of thankful to my girlfriend's family for sort of almost adding me to the family for a bit. It was pretty cool. Like, yeah, I think we were having dinner one night, and her older brother, I think we were chatting about mountains or something. We were over a beer, and it was like, oh, like, do you reckon you could climb Everest on the stairs? And it was just like a passing comment, and we were like, oh, well, how big's Everest? So it's like, I think 8,000, just over 8,000 meters. And we're like, oh, get the tape, man, get the tape. So we just got the tape, went to top and bottom of the stairs, like 3-story stairs. And we're like, oh, it's X amount. So all right, so we're like, how much would that be? And figured it out. I think it was like 1,455. It'd be ascents, like kind of ups of the staircase. So we're like, oh, right, okay. And I'm like, hey, you reckon you got it? And he's like, yeah, I'll give it a go, And I'm like, oh, okay, let's do it. It kind of fit in the same time frame I was going to do the Jurassic Coast, so it meant I could still raise money in a project for the cause that I care about. You know, and maybe, well, a wider goal was that everyone was locked inside at this point. So I was almost going like, look, right, you can do exercise, you can do extreme endurance in your home. You know, and you don't have to go on your stairs and climb Everest. You know, you could climb, you know, it once or twice and that be your Everest, but, you know, keep moving, keep your spirits up, because exercise, it does a lot for the mind and the body. Started to market it, I guess, and we sort of camped in the garden and said we were at base camp and like put up the Himalayan prayer flags, and yeah, it was a real nice kind of event for the family in the area of like this kind of weird thing going on in the house. And then it was showtime. Made sure I had a big porridge and woke up really early. Definitely one of the hardest things I've ever done. Didn't realise how much dehydration and sweat I'd do, so sweated through 7 t-shirts within the first kind of 6 hours or so. Had to keep eating, went through phases of being pretty delirious, probably because of dehydration or not of calories. The crew were great, like Grania and that, would make sure they'd fill my bottles and be there with food like, if I needed it.
How many you've done?
No.
4, 3, 4. How you feeling?
But yeah, I had a little system to like tally off every single ascent, so we counting it correct. There was a point basically where my legs were killing. I was felt like really kind of fried, and I sat on the sofa with my girlfriend, and she intentionally then called my best friend Jake, and Jake basically was like, "You're bottling it. You're not bottling it now." He gave me that pep talk, which he knows fuels me, and it was so strange because, to be completely honest, at that point I wanted to throw in the towel. In the back of my head, I was like, this is a bit much, maybe I'll just do it in like 2 or 3 parts, because, you know, people, I'm like, nah. And then Jake was like, nah, yeah, if you're doing that, that's it, you're just not a finisher. This is one thing we say to each other, a finisher. After that call, I went from being curled up in a ball on the sofa to running up and down the stairs, just because of the way he'd made me feel.
Summit of Mount Everest on the staircase at home, and aiming to do that, you know, kind of non-stop with just sort of drink breaks every sort of 50 to 100 flights.
Wow. So when did you start this, Will?
So just started at 6 a.m.
Maybe an hour before the end, I called my dad, and he literally was like, "Oh, how's it going?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's all right, pretty much the same." And then he goes, "Oh, like, listen to this," and I was like, "What?" And all I heard was a shh. He goes, like, "I'm drinking a beer," and I'm like, "Oh man," he's kind of kindly cruel.
That's the same. 155.
After 23.5 hours, we got it done. I got to the top of Everest. Her brother, my girlfriend's younger brother, Tom, he had a toilet roll across the top as the finish line. And yeah, walked through, and yeah, I was happy to see the end of that. Obviously we had a bit of an easing for Christmas, and then we went back into a lockdown and then sort of eased off again. And I sort of heard that some running events were going on. So I was like, oh, I wonder if the running event's been moved forward or like rolled over, because you're still kind of a participant. And I checked and it said, oh, it's in, you know, late May. And I'm like, oh, what's the date? And basically if it worked out, I had about 5 or 6 weeks, and I'm like, maybe it was 6. I was like, okay, well, I think that's enough. That's enough, because I you know, was running quite a lot. I think I just tried to like beat my half marathon time or something, and I was training for that quite heavily, and you know, so I got a bit faster, but I was putting in a lot of miles, so I was like, I've got a good base, so the normal kind of 12 week, I might kind of be up to par. And then I was like, okay, let's do this differently. This time, let's prepare properly, because with what I know and what I've learned since. So reached out to Sharman, sort of seen a video of him on YouTube, but he's basically a sort of champion ultra runner. He'd run the run and won the famous sort of Leadville 100-mile race in America, British guy. But basically that's like the oldest ultra 100-miler in America. And yeah, he won it, and sort of is a coach and all that sort of stuff. So I was like, oh, I sent him an email and I was like, hey, I'm doing this event that I, you know, attempted naively a few years ago. It'd be great if I could kind of, you know, maybe see what you think's possible, and if I've got enough time to really give it a good go. He gave me a lot of great insights, and you know, sort of, it was like there's not a whole lot you can do in that period of time. Like ideally you would have longer to be more specific to the event, but he said, you know, like in theory with what you've done or doing, you should be okay. I sort of mentioned that I'd signed up to do a 50k in Scotland sort of roughly 2 or 3 weeks before, just because I was like, oh, that's a good way of doing a long run as an event. He was a bit like, all right, see how your next few long runs go, and if you feel good, then yeah, it should be okay, but see it as a training run, don't see it as a race, don't get excited. But he gave me a lot of great insights into mentality. He's like, look, remind yourself on the start line that this is the furthest you ever run. Don't approach it like you're going for a park run, a 5k or whatever. Like, this is the furthest you've ever run. This is going to be the hardest run of your life. Like, remind yourself of that to keep yourself calm and grounded in the situation you're in. I'd come home from work and I'd be out for a half marathon on the trail, and you know, sort of be coming back at dark, and then, you know, on the weekends it would be sort of, you know, 6 to 8 hour odd runs. And you know, I'm very grateful to my girlfriend for, well, I suppose, still being with me after seeing me so little. I felt myself get better, I felt myself improve. And I felt just my approach to actually just enjoying it and learning how to take on the fuel, how to, you know, notice problems before they happen, and then also how to grit your teeth and get used to doing some climbs. So specifically for this event, there's, you know, 2,000 plus meters of climbing. And obviously after the Everest challenge, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, we'll be okay. But I was like, okay, I need to use specific parts of where I live to train for those. So I know that the biggest peaks were maybe like 400 meter plus climbs. So I was like, okay, I'll just throw them into, like, I didn't really do any road running for this prep. I literally just was out in the hills for hours.
On his training runs, he used to go away for like 4 or 5 hours and leave me be. I didn't really know how to pass the time, but I think sometimes when he's had a stressful day at work, or he's got too many things on his mind, he'll just go on like a 2 hour, 3 hour run into the hills. That's why I moved to Streatham, really, just to be by the hills.
Made a schoolboy error with like my layering. I thought it's set to rain, but it actually turned out to be really hot, and I was too stubborn to take my jacket off, so I sort of paid a little price for that, but it was a lesson. Got to see some beautiful views, some crazy places, and learned to push a little bit and pull a little bit and grit my teeth. But yeah, I got that done and I felt really pretty good, almost like, and it was really enjoyable. I say it was a great trip, first trip I've had with my dad like that probably ever, like where it was just me and him really exploring a place. And yeah, got that done, and I think we actually did Ben Nevis the next day because it's something he really wants to do, and I wanted to do it, I'd never been. So we went out to Ben Nevis the day after, and that was pretty cool. That was kind of the prep. It was, like I say, there's no way around it. It's hours on your feet, You know, I'd intentionally put like a stand-up desk in my work so I wasn't sitting down. The old cold bath here to, in theory, help me, I guess. But yeah, got prepped, and then yeah, it was kind of assembled the crew.
All right, mates, I am Jake, and I'd say I'm Will's best mate. Probably his only mate as well. No one else really likes him.
I am the chief. I'm Will's girlfriend and lover and partner in crime, sort of.
Okay, my name's Antony, Tony Dean. I'm Will's father.
I'm Ronnie Dean, and I am Will's mum, and also Lizzie's mum. Will's got a sister called Lizzie.
I don't have a role, just be here. Be here, he wants me here, I'm here. I want to be here. Get him over that line.
Well, I'm definitely not the hype man, as they call it. That's Jake's role. I'm more there for the moral support, and if he needs a shoulder to cry on, I was going to be the person who, if he needed to back out, I'd be the support.
My key role was driving them down and around, and getting people where they needed to be for the start of the race, and also to resupply him along his route.
My role is to encourage him, tell him he can do this, he's got this, but also to say to him, if it gets too tough, it's not a bad thing to say, I've got to stop.
I'm the geezer who's trying to run weirdly far. All the training and preparation is now done. It's time to make our way down south as the weekend has arrived.
I've got a sandwich in the bag.
We got two things of chips after that.
Let's go
out on that and zoom out on that. Like, grab the phone and then you'll see where it's safe. Should be.
A little message for you. Designed with love in mind. Every time you simply fall into. Open up my door. Hold it open for you.
We got some there.
Enough for everybody.
Yeah, it'll be alright.
It's new.
I was my own man, but it's not around.
Yeah. We had an interesting journey down. We got a full tour of Wales and the surrounding rural areas. So we've just got here now, just had some tea. Time to hit the sack, see how much sleep we can get. We'll be ready to go in the morning. See you then. Yeah, we got to the start line, got through, got a number, spoke to a really nice guy from the charity. Then set off, maybe I think it was about 7:30 or something like that.
I'm James from Alzheimer's Research UK. I'm the Regional Fundraising Officer for the South West. I'm just here at the Jurassic Coast Challenge. We're here to just say thank you to our supporters really, because without them we wouldn't be able to fund the research we do. As a charity, we are a research charity that's trying to find a cure and manageable treatment for all forms of dementia. Our goal is to create a world free from the fear, harm and heartbreak of dementia, and for the families that care for people with dementia as well, like Will's family, and we really appreciate everything he's doing for us this weekend. It's an amazing challenge he's taken and a great way of raising awareness about what dementia is. It's not something that just happens to old people. It's not a normal part of the aging process. You know, it's a degenerative effect on the brain. The brain shrinks with Alzheimer's disease at around about 140 grams from a healthy brain weight. And we just want to raise awareness and help people support their families, and so we can fund research that will create that world where people don't know what this is. You know, if the only way people learn about dementia is through history books in the future, then we've done our job.
I think we're all a bunch of odd people all together that fit well. His dad is the logistics behind everything. He is the brains. He knows where to be at what time, if he needed more gels, more food, everything like that.
Tony, he's like the sort of the rock. He's always there, no matter what Will needs and when he needs. If there's a phone call, he will do it. You know, he's reliable, that's the word, reliable.
4 mile in. Weather's been alright so far. Probably went out a little hot, but I feel alright. Only just under 60 to go. First bit of seaside.
This one, it's been more focused. You know, he's had a decent bed for the night, he's had breakfast. He's really monitored his diet this time with that, I don't know the name of the chap that sent him the diet stuff, but that's made a huge difference as well.
You're very, very helpful in sending over like a plan and advice, but I suppose for the novice or for the person who is just being introduced to endurance sport or kind of the idea of their first ultra, what would you say are the initial do's and don'ts and kind of need to knows for fueling that event?
You know, so first and foremost, I would say practice little and often in training. Practice realistically what you will actually do in the end. So actually get the fuel and think, right, I'm in event mode. I'm going to go out for my long run. So you might be training for an ultra and your long run might be a, you know, say 6-7 hour run. Actually fuel for that as if you were properly in event mode. So then you get an idea of how often you're drinking, how much you're eating, and making sure that that sits comfortably with you. And then you can work out, is that enough to get me through the entire event? I think also, don't stress. You know, worst case scenario is, and the reality is, if you're doing a longer event, like an ultra, for example, a lot of it's spent walking. You know, you might think you're running, but actually that shuffle is slower than a walk. So you might as well just walk, you know. And so the reality is you could go out tomorrow and walk a hell of a long way if you really wanted to. But as soon as people get in event mode, they get all stressed and they get worried and they get worked up, and that can have a massive impact on them as well. So I would just say, just relax, enjoy the experience, and just, you know, treat your first one very much like an adventure. And however far you get in that venture is a success. So some people don't finish because of injury, some people don't finish for whatever reason. It doesn't matter, because there's always another event and there's always another day.
It's endurance, it's very physical, it's up and down, up and down, up and down. It can be in all weathers.
It's quite a difficult terrain with the cliffs and the pebbles on the beaches.
Then we got to Lulworth Cove, which is, like I said, a landmark in the area on the coastline. A lot of tourists to go there. It's literally like a kind of arced cove that's purely just pebbles, so not the best thing to be running across. And that marked the 42k mark, which is the marathon distance, and it was making a pretty good time. It felt pretty good, and I was really gracious enough to have you know, some of the crew there. So we had Jake, Grania, Jamie.
I can't quite put it into words, but like the anticipation of him possibly not completing it was there.
They were asking me how I was. I said I'm okay. They asked me if I need anything. I think I was all right at the time. I think they were going to a skate park or something, so they were quite enjoying the sunshine as well. And then just after that, it was quite a big climb. But yeah, plowed on.
The one thing that amazed me is the actual views and everything. Well, when we went yesterday, we got to see half of it. And like to fathom that he's actually had to run over that blows my mind. And even the beaches and stuff, because we went on a walk this morning over the beach and it was just like an hour workout and a half, so I can't imagine what it does to your whole body.
Bluest water I've ever seen. Oh no.
Arrived at the 50k mark, it's halfway, only 50 to go. Got into the aid station, topped up on some water, had some hot food and headed back out. Checkpoint then from there was about 65-ish, and that one was like a really nice place. It was right on the water, and then Jake, Jamie and Grania were there again. Like they managed to get there, which is cool.
If anything, I was just more that wanted to ask the question, like, how your legs feeling?
They actually strolled with me for a bit, and Andy was there as well. Actually, was filming. They sort of helped me pack, take my jacket off and do all these sorts of bits. But they sort of joined us for a bit. It was real nice. And then Grania made the gracious decision of like saying, actually, I'll come with you for a bit and to the next checkpoint. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
She definitely wasn't dressed for the occasion, but she managed to share my water bottle and we headed off into the sun. I think the boys went back to the skate park to try and get some more clips and footage. But yeah, we'll catch up with them at the next checkpoint.
That was probably one of the highlights of the whole event for me, like actually sharing that well, firstly with the mates and the crew, and then my girlfriend actually joining me for a little leg of it and like experiencing it and being a part of it.
Grania, pain in the ass all day, but worth it for $1.
Grania, his girlfriend's a great support, good map reader. She's helped me out on a lot of these country lanes where at night where we've been getting lost.
I think they've been together about 1.5 years, 2 years, and they work so well together. I don't know if it's because they're the same birth sign but they really do. I've seen such a gentle side of Will since he's been with Grania. It's been really nice.
What happens on these events is you just chat, like you just talk to people, get to know people, because it's not a ferocious pace. It's quite conversational, and the settings are really nice. So yeah, we just got talking and talking about the past, the future, all sorts really, and it was really nice. He pushed me and got me to the point where I gave up last time. So this was the most important part of the whole race for me, I think, was approaching 82k. I remember sitting at the sign to capture the clip and I'm like, 82, we're here. Made it. That was almost like finishing the race to me because I proved to myself I can at least get back here. But then I was like, I feel good, got to the station. Obviously Grania was with me at that point, it was really cool.
I remember finishing the 82 with him this time round and he was like, right, ready for the last bit. Like, there was no question about it. And there was also a guy next door to him who was prepared to drop out, and I was like, you've got to push yourself. Just thinking about Will the last time.
This is getting done now, there's no question. Like, I'm feeling good, sun's up, like it's sort of setting, and yeah, I feel good. Let's get this done. Let's eat these Ks up. Started picking up a good pace because I was feeling pretty excited, and then yeah, you sort of come onto the kind of the last stretch, I guess, which is all along the beach.
8 kilometres, lad. How many miles is that? You know, Jesus. Go on then, lad. Go on then, lad. I'll take the 5 of you.
It's going to be my pace, which is like a lap.
Thank for that. Just what I needed. All right, sound lad. All right, well, we'll catch you at 92 then. Just f***ing power through this bit now. You got it. Sound lad. Finisher. Bye. Sound.
Jake's the joker, the lovable joker, who both he and Will they've grown up together, they know each other inside out, they can get each other through anything. Jake's the sort of say, come on, just do it, sort of, whereas everyone else will sort of pussyfoot around. Jake will say what's needed.
I meant to be looking into the camera. He tried it 2 years ago and he pulled out at 82k, and we can't be having that again, can we? No sir. He's my best friend too. What normal people would class as your best friend, he's my best friend. In short.
And as it sort of dropped off, turned on the head torch, and then it's like, cool, thankfully this time I had a head torch that I could see beyond my toes. I could probably see actually like a good 10-15 metres in front of me, so it was pretty good.
Surely it's got to take him till early hours in the morning.
And it's the leg season up overnight, and depending on how long they stop at each rest stop, it's going to make it harder.
Do you think it makes it harder stopping at the stops, or easier?
I think it's more difficult.
Yeah, I can't stop. I can't when I get running. If I stop, my legs feel like they're heavy.
Jelly.
Yeah, mad. But, yeah, he'll smash it. He did try it last year and pulled out at 82.
Oh really?
Yeah. So, not last year. Is it the year before now? It wasn't last year.
There's still like a couple of marathons.
It's
crazy to think.
So. Got onto, I think it's called Chesil Beach, and when I looked at the map for the start, which I actually did this time round rather than naively just go and give it a go, I was like, okay, it says like Shale Beach, and I'm like, okay, cool, that must be like a a path or something. So got there and it literally was a shale beach. It was, you know, more pebbles than I've ever seen. The step, your shoe gets swallowed up each step. You almost end up with more of them in your shoe than kind of on the beach. So it was a pure plod. Doesn't matter how hard you tried, you couldn't pick up a pace on there. This is one of those things I hadn't anticipated. You're like, oh, all the hard stuff's at the start, but oh no, there's this bit which is a new challenge. That was maybe 3 or 4K or whatever of that kind of terrain. And then I think you got to the 92K mark, and there we had the crew there again. Had Andy, had Jamie, Jake, and yeah, they were sitting in the car and they'd been perched there a little bit.
It's alright, it's buff here.
Yeah, they're all in the car.
Are they?
Yeah.
Is he joining?
I think he needs, he wants a head torch, I think.
In the car?
Yeah, just in the... How you feeling, you alright?
Yeah, that last bit was, it was like, I don't know, it felt like miles of like Pebble Beach.
Yeah,
and
don't mean to blind you, if that is blinding you at all.
And then the muddiest of mud.
Yeah.
Ronnie just rang me, he's like, you on your way? And I'm like, nah, he hasn't showed up yet. Like,
bro, that Pebble Beach went on forever and then it was the muddiest thing I've ever
say hello to him, Grania.
I can hear you, Mucker.
Yeah, sound alright. Hello, lads. Yeah. Alright, see you in a bit. Surely I feel worse than you.
Oh, let me see it again.
Huh?
Let me see it again. Apparently it's 5K.
5K?
Yeah, apparently this is like, definitely went on longer than that.
Yeah, definitely. Wait, no, I thought it was 8K after this.
6, I heard 6 from the 2 other geezers who were just in.
Because it's like you only run on sand and your feet go from under you all the time, you're trying to run and run.
How are your legs feeling?
That's good. Mine near the end, you start to feel good, don't you?
Yeah, is that coffee as well?
No, it's coke.
What do you reckon, another 2 hours?
I don't want to get this done.
You in it?
No, literally, I was keen to go this bit, just couldn't. Physically couldn't.
Just want to push it now, yeah?
Yeah.
See, that's Murdow last time.
Wait, if I'd have kept going on,
yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Pebble Beach.
Yeah.
No, I'd have been stranded. I would have fully surrendered and counted my losses. Right, safe.
Right, sounds short and sweet.
Yeah.
You got it.
Scared it down. Where's the views?
Your legs look healthy.
Did they?
Yeah, you still got on your shorts.
You can see the green lights.
Okay. Sound.
See you later, see you at the finish.
Jake sort of told me on the phone that he was going to join me for the last bit. He was kind of pulling my leg a little bit because of his legs, you know, he's got legs of the old man, so he ain't joining me.
Let's not blind you anymore.
Felt good, went off at a good pace.
I don't reckon anyone can describe Will. I don't know, it's impossible. It's impossible to describe him. He doesn't do anything for like to receive. It's all just to help other people and just give, and it's crazy. I'd like to give more to Will, but the people who give the most usually don't get the most, and that's life, but yeah, he's definitely one of them people.
Ron, my wife, she's come along, and Will's a mummy's boy, and he'll do anything for his mum, so that's a good motivation to complete. She's there to support him in as much as she can.
His mum, who is his mum, it's as simple as that, like, means everything to him.
How long have you guys been stood? Yeah.
Feels like about a lifetime now. It's getting too slow.
Will's mom, you know, this special character that she is, she holds a lot of humbleness about her. You know, you can't deny someone anything with a personality like the one that she has. You know, she's a very special woman.
Will is my rock. He's my son. He's the person that knows. He knows when something's wrong with me before I do. An example would be, I'll have got back to the car, I can't breathe, and the phone will go, and it's Will. And he's like, don't talk, just breathe. And it's quite, and we do it to each other as well. It's quite, I won't say spooky is not the right word, because I think everything happens for a reason.
One thing I didn't see again in the graph is there was a climb at the end. You know, kind enough to grace us with a climb at the end.
And I've been down before. Now I'm running. Nothing can keep me from my heart is sore. I've been down before. Now I'm running. Nothing can keep me from you.
Where's Tony?
He's with Will. He's gone to meet him.
Does he walk through?
Yeah, the whole 100. He's decided to go back to the start of the 100 and do it all himself.
Tony's getting a bit more sensitive, isn't he? He'd have sat in the car a few years ago.
No, she's retired.
And now he's trying to pull him over the line. Now he likes him.
We did have concerns with Will because as time went on it was getting dark and obviously there's fatigue there. The team got around the finish line to give him a good cheer on welcome. I popped down the road a bit just to walk him in and he was fine, no concerns. We didn't need to be concerned because he had it all together.
Your son's about to finally finish
They're
up.
one thingy away.
1 kilometre. 1k. 1k and a...
1k away.
I'd ask you to jog, but I don't know if you've got it.
No, you go ahead.
Sure?
Yeah. See what all that's there.
Yeah.
All around
You
the
sure?
block. Go to carry sticks.
Nah, it's all good. I'll see you in a sec. Thank you.
I'm there to listen mainly now because of my health and things, to listen and to give advice when I can. And just like, I think we're all just like a cheering crowd saying, come on Will, you've got this, you can do it. You know, we know you can do this. You know you've got this, Will. You've got that last bit in you that you can dig out. You know, like when you're on the walks up near where you live and you phone me for about the last hour and we talk it through as you're coming back because you're worn out. It's like that. You've got it in you and you can do this. In fact, phone me and we'll talk. I probably won't be able to breathe, but no, you can do this. You know, you're amazing. You look at everything you've done up to this point and you've achieved and you can do this. So do it. I love you.
Yes. Thank you.
Well done.
Cheers.
Him and his mum's like the emotion behind that. Yeah, I can't quite describe it.
Without speaking to him about it, I know that's what, I know he crossed that line for his mum more than him, definitely. And putting that medal over her head is what made it all worth it, definitely. That's Will down to a T. That's probably the finishing line to him. That's the best thing for me to see as well. And I didn't get my medal, so I'm annoyed about that, but.
She was there, she was the finish, she's got the medal, and yeah, she's done it, not me. You know, we've done it as a crew. It made me realise how far you can go, probably further with the great people around. We had a moment, a day that we'll all remember, but we actually did it and raised money for the thing that protects those memories that we want to remember. I had everyone I cared about there, like that, you know, selfishly, like that. who could ask for more? The next question is always, I think, a day or so after you go, what's next?
Jamie.
Jim Bob, SquarePants. Gary? Paul. Gary Paul.
I'm Andrew Galloway and I'm a filmmaker. My role as a crew member for this project has been the filmmaker, the guy that's going to stitch all this together.
Take a sip then.
My birthday, 25 today. Not that that matters. And it says, you have a nice face. They're not wrong.